Well, it's an historic day as a peace plan is agreed to end the war in Gaza. Donald Trump says Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of the deal. A ceasefire is expected to be declared in an hour's time.
Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
That's the American president adding that hostages could be released as early as this weekend.
Just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer says he welcomes the deal with profound relief.
This is a moment of profound relief that will be felt around the world, but particularly for the hostages, their families, and for the civilian population of Gaza.
Well, the Trump peace deal certainly has a more tangible feel about it. After the Israeli cabinet ratify it within the next hour, Hamas will have 72 hours to release those remaining hostages.
And does Donald Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in the Middle East? Well, the US president claims to have ended 6 wars and says it's an insult to the US if he doesn't receive the medal.
And the Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden told GBNews he certainly deserves some credit.
I don't know if that will happen, but...
Do you want it to happen?
Well, it's for the Nobel Committee, but I do think he deserves great credit.
Elsewhere, we'll be discussing the scandal that some say could bring down Keir Starmer, as a top former civil servant challenges the official explanation for why the trial into alleged Chinese spies collapsed.
Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
And could that pledge spell a revival for the Conservatives? Kemi Badenoch promising to abolish stamp duty for primary homes in a major surprise announcement at the Conservative Congress, which I'm told surprised most of our shadow cabinet. Well, that was, Miriam, I can't recall the last time I heard a Tory leader address the Tory conference and sound like a Conservative. It was Conservative, there was a policy announcement after policy announcement. Now, we don't know if people are listening beyond the conference floor. They may never get into power for years, but the stamp duty policy in particular, that will help young people get on the housing ladder, older people, if they want to downsize, it will help them. The shadow cabinet didn't know, which is why it didn't leak.
Yeah.
The only person who was in the loop, I was told, was Sir Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, and Kemi Badenoch, and a small team of officials.
Wow. Well, one of the main criticisms of Kemi Badenoch since she came to the leadership last year is that she hasn't been seen enough, she hasn't been heard enough, she hasn't been announcing enough policy. But this week there's been announcement after announcement, and all the front pages today carrying that surprise story about stamp duty being scrapped. It'll be really interesting to see how Reform respond. Economics is seen to be in their weak point. Will they just copy this policy proposal?
And the Tory party lost its reputation of being good custodians of the economy, not least because they imposed the biggest tax burden on this country for 70 years. This, I think, is the start of the fight back.
Well, maybe, and some commentators saying that instead of slashing national insurance, which Rishi Sunak actually did from 12% to 8%, but got absolutely no credit for it, they should have scrapped stamp duty. That would have had more effect. Well, let us know what you think. Go on gbnews.com/your say. But first, here is your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Miriam, Andrew, thank you very much. Good morning to you. Leading the news this morning, Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan, a major step towards a permanent end to 2 years of war. The president says hostages and prisoners will be exchanged, Israeli troops will withdraw, and more aid allowed into Gaza. He spoke to Fox News just hours after the deal was agreed.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's brought peace to the world, I'm telling you.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer has hailed the agreement as a moment of profound relief that will be felt around the world. If approved by Israel's cabinet this afternoon, a ceasefire could begin within hours. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer is in India meeting Prime Minister Modi on what's been called a historic trade mission. He's unveiling new business and film deals, saying the UK-India partnership could boost Britain's economy by nearly £5 billion a year. Millions of households in England are facing even higher water bills after 5 suppliers, including Anglian and Wessex, won their appeal to raise bills. The watchdogs allowed an extra 3% rise on top of Ofwat's already approved 36% increase, though it rejected most of the firm's demands as largely unjustified. 3 UK universities have made the global top 10, Oxford first for the 10th year running, Cambridge joint third and Imperial in 8th. But overall, the UK slipped slightly, with fewer institutions in the world's top 500 for the first time since 2016. And the Prime Minister is eyeing longer pub opening hours in a bid to revive Britain's struggling hospitality sector. He's launched a 4-week blitz consultation to cut red tape, making it easier for pubs to stay open later, play live music and serve food outside. Those are the headlines. A full roundup from me here at 10.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good morning and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, it is an historic day. Peace plan is agreed. The document could be signed as soon as 10 o'clock this morning to help end the war in Gaza. How long it will last, we don't know.
Well, Donald Trump says that Israel and Hamas have signed off on this first phase of the deal, and we are expecting that ceasefire to be declared in an hour's time. And here in the studio, joining us to discuss this, is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Obviously, huge hopes pinned on this deal. Lots of background negotiations have been going on with other countries as well. What chance do you think this has of lasting?
Well, it certainly has a more tangible feel about it, certainly in the early stages. That's not to underplay just how difficult this is going to be, a 20-point plan. And we're at almost the easiest part of it, which is just to get that agreement to release the remaining hostages. Having said that, of course, from Hamas's point of view, that's their last remaining bargaining chip. But they've clearly been given assurances from the American side that the rest of the negotiating process will be honoured, that they will, in a more sort of meaningful way, move towards the steps that many people want to see in that part of the world. And of course, you've got these Arab and Muslim countries that have gone fully behind this deal as well, which clearly is important because they will, apparently we're told, play a part in what will replace Hamas in terms of an interim administration to begin with, and then something more longer term. The way it's going to play out is that today, within the hour, there will be a meeting of the Israeli cabinet. They're expected to formally ratify this deal, and then you've got 72 hours for Hamas to release the remaining hostages, 48 of them from the 250 plus who were captured on October the 7th.
How many are alive, do we think?
Just 20. Only 20 are alive, 28 dead. And although we expect that the Hamas will be able to release the 20 who are alive, it might be more problematic to release the bodies or get the bodies of those who are dead back to their loved ones, simply because in some circumstances they are buried under tons of rubble in tunnel systems and the like. So that might be more problematic, but that's the course they will embark on. Israel will withdraw to a pre-agreed line, allowing for obviously a cessation of any of the fighting. 400 trucks, aid trucks a day will come into Gaza over 5 days, and then it's hoped that will be scaled up. So things are moving in the right direction, but then of course you get on to the other phases of it, about how do you de-arm Hamas?
Yeah.
What would the interim administration be like? What part, if any, is there for Hamas in a civilian capacity. Would Israel, you know, countenance that? And I'm not sure they would.
Well, I was just going to say, so what's changed for Israel? Because Israel was always making the point, Hamas will, if there was a ceasefire, would just take time to rearm, re-equip, and then start their war of terror again. Because Hamas is not going to change its commitment to eradicate Israel from the world map.
One word, I think, Trump is what's changed for Israel.
Right.
I think he's reached a point now where he's put real pressure on Netanyahu now to get behind this deal. I mean, he said as much in interviews that he's done. He said, look, to Benjamin Netanyahu, you cannot now fight the whole world. And that's the situation we're at. Apart from America, so much of the world is absolutely opposed to what Israel is doing in Gaza at the moment. We've seen it here with what Sir Keir Starmer has done and other European nations have done in recognising a Palestinian state. So Israel always knew it, you know, had a finite time to try to get as much achieved in this operation as possible. They've actually got 2 years out of it. And I think that certainly Trump has said, look, we're at the stage now, we've got to get a deal, we've got to get something in place. Whether, as I say, all of these 20 points can be achieved is, you know, the great unknown. But it's certainly looking hopeful at this point, more hopeful than it has over 2 years.
Indeed. Mark White, thank you very much. We'll be returning to you later. Well, let's go now to the former spokesman for the State of Israel, Elon Levy. Elon, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. How is this potential peace deal being received in Israel itself?
Good morning, and it is the first time in 2 years that Israelis are greeting each other with good morning without a hint of irony. Because do you know what the hostages have in common with football? They're coming home. Israelis have been racked with worry for the last 2 years. 2 years since the hostages were ripped from their beds, abducted from a music festival, taken away from their families, held in tunnels under Gaza, tortured, starved, abused, and after 2 years, that nightmare is about to come to an end. So there is immense relief in Israel now that we have reached an agreement, a ransom, in order to get the hostages out, and hope that there will be phase 2 to end the war for good in a way that ensures that the Gaza Strip is demilitarized and de-radicalized so that this is the last Gaza war.
How does this deal change the psyche of the Hamas terrorists, the Hamas leadership, which wants to destroy the State of Israel?
Hamas has lost this war. The terms of this agreement are Hamas accepting its surrender, accepting that in stage 2, it will have to give up its weapons and it will have to give up power. But you're right. The Hamas terrorist army has not given up its goal of destroying the State of Israel. Hamas is a genuinely genocidal enemy that wants to destroy this country and kill all of us. And Hamas is thinking about the long game. Hamas wants, in the end, to take over the Palestinian Authority, to become the legitimate government of the Palestinians. And it's already receiving a boost in the polls from Britain's recognition of a Palestinian state. It will be boosted in the polls because of the convicted terrorists Israel is going to be forced to release from prison. And it's enjoying popularity, frankly, because it's trashed Israel's global reputation and brought massive protests onto the streets of London. So that is what all world leaders have to be vigilant about. Even if this war ends, Hamas's goal of the destruction of the State of Israel won't have gone away. It's going to shift phases, and we're going to have to be absolutely vigilant so it cannot rear its ugly head.
Now, clearly, the first aim of this peace plan is to get the hostages back, which has been one of the primary reasons for the war in the first place. But you referred there to the second phase, the de-radicalised terror-free zone that Gaza is about to become, or hoped to become. But it's very difficult to see how that will take place without any kind of Israeli oversight over the security situation there. If Hamas, even if Hamas is de-armed, surely other groups will spring up in its place. Do you think it's actually possible that in a year, 2 years' time, Gaza will be some sort of independent strip, or will the Israeli forces still be on the ground there?
the only way that we can get peace between Israel and Gaza is if Gaza is de-radicalized. Not just Hamas destroyed, not just Gaza demilitarized, if the population is de-radicalized. We know from hostages who came out of captivity, they say when they were dragged in on October 7th, civilians around them tried to lynch them, and the Hamas terrorists had to protect them, because that's how people were celebrating and trying to lynch them on the street. The jihadi ideology that meant that Hamas became more popular after October 7th, that ideology that glorifies violence until Israel is destroyed, that has to be eliminated. That's why point one of President Trump's plan is de-radicalization. But you know, for that to happen, the international community needs to understand the destructive role it's been playing by funding UNRWA, for example, the UN agency that runs most of the education in Gaza, whose staff, whose graduates, whose teachers took part in the October 7th massacre, who teach children to glorify terrorism and oppose Israel. If we want real de-radicalization, it has to come through educating the population of Gaza that, you know what, Gaza is their home. They're not going to replace Israel. They're not going to destroy it. If they want peaceful lives, they need to rebuild peaceful lives in Gaza next to Israel. That's the only way peace is really going to happen, through de-radicalization, just like Germany had denazification after the Second World War.
Well, Elon Levy, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
How are they going to know Hamas has given up all their arms, all their guns, all their weapons, all their missiles?
And senior diplomats say that for years, nobody behind the scenes has really taken seriously the two-state solution. Nobody believes that's possible anymore. And yet that still seems to be the stated aim, and it's hard to see how we will get there, but we will see.
And is Hamas going to be in charge of a two-state, of a second state?
Well, Israel won't allow that to happen, but what's the alternative?
Now, Steadhead will be crossing back to Israel for that historic signing of the Gaza ceasefire, which is expected in the next 15 minutes.
And coming up next, we'll be discussing the scandal of the alleged Chinese spies that some say could bring Keir Starmer down.
First, we're going to give you the weather forecast for some of our nicest European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Some unsettled weather across eastern areas of Spain. Storm Alice is set to bring heavy showers and also some thunderstorms. Mostly dry and settled across Madeira and also Tenerife, but all eyes on eastern areas of Spain. Some intense thunderstorms here likely to bring some localised flooding. A few showers across parts of Sardinia on Friday, but elsewhere, once again, mostly dry and settled. Plenty of sunshine, and this theme will continue over into the weekend with warm temperatures too, widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The cost of parking, it's increased by, wait for it, 500%.
And they've done that overnight without consultation, right?
Yeah.
So it now costs £4.85 an hour, right? And what's that going to do? It's going to stop people visiting. And it's not easy to get around York, I have to say. You know, one road in, one road out type thing. Congestion around the place. Yes, there's car parking spaces, but goodness me, I mean, this is obviously very, very controversial, and these are the sort of taxes, indirect taxes, that come on all of us. It's now going to cost us so much money just to get there, just to see there. Tell us more.
That's right, Eamon, and the City of York Council have introduced this to try and reduce congestion, to try and get more people on buses, more people cycling to go shopping. But of course, that infrastructure hasn't been put in place. There's not been extra buses put on. There's not been extra bike racks for people to park. And certainly when you're doing a shop, a lot of the shops here are greengrocers, butchers. How are you going to carry all that on a bike? I'd like to introduce you to Karen now. She's just come to pay for parking parking, expecting that it was going to be 80p. How do you feel when you've just seen this price rise today?
I am really annoyed. I've come out with enough money to pay basically for 2 hours. I'm having my hair done, which then knowing now that this is, say, triple what it would have been, then my online payment isn't working. So I'm effectively not able to pay, which is really, really, really annoying.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 9 minutes to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Britain's most senior prosecutor has blamed Labour for the collapse of the China spy trial after the government apparently repeatedly refused to describe Beijing as a national security threat, an enemy.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is the co-founder of Hong Kong Watch, Benedict Rogers. Good morning, Benedict. Thank you for joining us. Now, this is quite a complicated story, isn't it? Can you explain very briefly why we think that this trial has collapsed?
Well, it is complicated, you're right. Essentially, what seems to have happened is that the prosecution was all set to go, and then the government withdrew a key piece of evidence, a key witness, which was basically saying that China is an enemy, and when the government refused to do that, the prosecution couldn't proceed.
Now, we've had an extraordinary week, Ben, because we've seen the former director, the current director of public prosecutions intervening to blame the government, and that's ironic considering the Prime Minister is a former director of public prosecutions. But almost unprecedented, the former Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, Lord Case, has also intervened to suggest it's this government's fault. I don't recall such senior figures who've got no skin in the game, they're not party political, intervening in this way.
That's exactly right, and not only the ones you've mentioned, but also the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove, has been on the media in the last 24 hours. So you have the former head of MI6, the former head of the Civil Service, and the Director of Public Prosecutions. It is absolutely extraordinary.
So this happened on Labour's watch because the ministers are saying, oh no, it's because the previous Tory government wouldn't describe China as an enemy. We were handled that poison chalice. But these senior figures are saying something quite different.
That's right. And actually, I mean, this shouldn't be a party political point. It's far too important for that. But if you want to look at what the previous Conservative government did, in their integrated review in 2023, they very much talked about the threat from China. The former Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat, many times talked about the threat from China. And of course, the heads of both MI6 and MI5 have, on numerous occasions, talked about it. So the current government has no justification at all in trying to blame the previous government. They could proceed with this prosecution if they chose to. And I can only assume that it's for political reasons. They don't want to upset Beijing.
I'm so sorry, we are out of time. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming on this morning. Well,
this government's just sucking up to that appalling Chinese state. That's what this is about.
Don't go anywhere, because the Gaza ceasefire is expected to be announced in the next few minutes, so do stay with us here on Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any fog patches soon clearing away this morning, leaving a mostly bright day for many, though some drizzly outbreaks expected at times in the west. So Northern Ireland, southwestern parts of Scotland, also northwest England, will see a constant feed of drizzle out from the west, so it could be quite damp at times here, particularly across any hilly areas. Elsewhere, we'll see a mix of cloud, also some bright, if not sunny spells at times, and where we see those, it will feel warm and pleasant in the sunshine. Highs reaching around 17 to 18, possibly 19 degrees Celsius across parts of the southeast. Even eastern Scotland should see a warm afternoon. Now we'll start to see a change across Scotland through the course of the afternoon. It could turn quite breezy, particularly around coastal areas in the west. And once again, we'll see this constant feed of cloud, some drizzle, particularly across western hilly areas. Though slightly drier and brighter end to the day across the far east of Scotland. Northern Ireland, similar, fairly cloudy with some drizzle at times. Northwest England could see fairly similar conditions. Even across Wales, we could also see some drizzle across the hills. But for most areas, it should be another dry night. But once again, we'll see plenty of cloud start to feed its way in from the west. The best of the clearer skies are probably going to be across eastern England, but where we see any prolonged clear spells, that means we could be in for a chance of mist and fog during the very early hours of Friday. With plenty of cloud around, that does mean it should be a mostly mild night. Many towns and cities dropping around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius. So for the end of the week, it could be quite a grey, gloomy start, particularly across western Scotland, where we'll continue to see drizzly outbreaks. But through the course of the morning, that cloud should lift and break, any mist and fog clearing away, and that should allow some sunshine to develop, particularly across eastern Scotland, northeastern parts of England, though parts of southern England and Wales could hold on to that cloud through much of the afternoon. But still, once again, where we see the bright and sunny spells, it should be another warm day, highs of around 18 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Roads nationwide face issues today. On the A90 highway, drivers should take caution due to high winds impacting the Forth Road Bridge. In South Gloucestershire, on the M5 northbound between Junction 15 and Junction 14, a collision led to one-lane closure. Motorists on the A34 northbound between the M4 and the A4 185 in West Berkshire encounter 40-minute delays due to an incident with one lane closed. The A470 northbound at Nantgarv is experiencing congestion at the off-slip. And on the trains, Cross Country reports major disruptions between Burton-on-Trent and Derby and Brockenhurst and Southampton Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th of October. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
History in the making, a peace plan agreed to end the war in Gaza. Donald Trump, who's behind it all, says Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of the deal. We think that ceasefire could be signed any minute now.
Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
And the American president added that hostages could be released as early as this weekend.
Just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
And the Prime Minister, who's abroad, of course, says he welcomes a deal that could finally bring peace to the Middle East.
This is a moment of profound relief that we felt around the world, but particularly for the hostages, their families, and for the civilian population of Gaza.
Well, the very latest out of Israel is that it's expected to be early afternoon now before the Israeli cabinet ratifies that deal. Then after that, it's expected to be formally signed by both sides.
So, does Donald Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in the Middle East? Well, the US president claims to have ended 6 wars and says it's an insult to the US if he doesn't receive the medal.
And the Work and Pensions Secretary, Pat McFadden, told GB News, not going as far as saying he gets the Nobel Prize, but he did say the president deserves a lot of credit.
I don't know if that will happen, but...
Do you want it to happen?
Well, it's for the Nobel Committee, but I do think he deserves great credit.
Elsewhere, we'll be discussing the scandal that some say could bring down Keir Starmer as a former top civil servant challenges the official explanation for why the trial into those alleged Chinese spies has collapsed.
Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
Could that policy change spell a revival for the Tories after Kemi Badenoch promised to abolish stamp duty for primary homes? It was a surprise announcement and it electrified the Conservative Party conference.
Now, Andrew, I do wonder if there's a lot more to this Chinese spying story than we've so far heard. The government trying to blame it on the last government, claiming that they didn't say that China was a threat. Now, that's clearly not true. They did say that. But why is the government not prepared to put a witness in court in this trial to say that China is a threat to national security?
And it is extraordinary, I would say unprecedented, to have the Director of Public Prosecutions, a public official paid for out of the public purse, intervening in this. The former Cabinet Secretary, that's the most senior civil servant in the land, Simon Case, and a former head of MI6, Sarissa Dearlove, all intervening, suggesting that this problem is caused by this government. Frankly, because it's cozying up to that vile Chinese regime because it wants a trade deal.
Yeah, and one of the first things that this government did was to do that deal, giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, which is an ally of China.
Yeah.
Now, you can understand the government desperately wants and needs trade with China. If we ended trade with China, there'd be enormous economic problems in this country, crazy inflation, all those kind of things. But surely national security has to come first.
But also, do we want any more Chinese rubbish in our shops and supermarkets? Do we really? All that cheap trash? Actually, if I'm in somewhere like John Lewis, I look at the label, it's China, I don't buy it. My small little protest.
But so many of ours, we just don't make a lot of things anymore, do we? So we would struggle. But nevertheless, let us know what you think about that and all the other topics we're covering today. Go to gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's the new headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom just after 10 o'clock. Well, the breaking news this morning, historic and unprecedented. Those the words of President Trump as Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of his Gaza peace plan. It is a major step towards a permanent end to now 2 years of war. The plan would see Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners released, Israeli forces withdrawn and hundreds of aid trucks allowed into Gaza each day. Israel's government meets this afternoon to approve that deal, and if it does, a ceasefire could begin within hours. Hamas has confirmed the agreement, but says it is still waiting on the final list of its prisoners to be freed. Donald Trump says Gaza will be rebuilt once the first phase is complete. Here's what he had to say to Fox News just hours after that deal was announced.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's brought peace to the world, I'm telling you.
Well, here, Sir Keir Starmer has called Israel and Hamas's agreement on that first phase of the peace plan a moment of profound relief felt around the world. The Prime Minister has praised the tireless diplomatic efforts of the US, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey in moving towards peace. He says the deal must be implemented in full and without delay, with restrictions on humanitarian aid to Gaza lifted immediately.
I strongly welcome the news that a deal has been reached on the first stage of the peace plan in Gaza. This is a moment of profound relief that we felt around the world, but particularly for the hostages, their families, and for the civilian population of Gaza.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has been given a bold welcome in India, with streets in Mumbai lined with thousands of photos of him and Prime Minister Modi. On his first official visit to the country, he's leading a record delegation of more than 100 UK business, university and cultural leaders on a 2-day trade mission. He's unveiling new business and film deals, saying the UK-India partnership could boost Britain's economy by nearly £5 billion a year. Sir Keir's also announced 3 Bollywood films will soon be shot in the UK, ending an 8-year hiatus. Millions of households in England face even higher water bills after 5 major suppliers won an appeal to the UK's competition regulator. Anglian, Northumbrian, Southern, Wessex and South East Water can now raise bills by an extra 3%. That's on top of Ofwat's already approved increases. The watchdog says it's to help cover rising borrowing costs, but insists most of the company's requests were largely unjustified. It means customers will shoulder part of the £550 million in extra revenue granted to the firms. Thames Water's separate appeal, though, has been delayed as it works on a rescue deal. Well, breaking news in just the last few minutes. Figures released this morning show that hate crimes across England and Wales have risen yet again. They are up 2%, just shy of 116,000 in the past year. New Home Office data shows sharp increases in both race and religiously motivated offences. And campaigners say the numbers highlight growing divisions, while police insist they're working to rebuild trust with affected communities. Oxford has topped the world university rankings for the 10th year in a row, with Cambridge and Imperial also landing in the global top 10. Cambridge climbed to join 3rd, Imperial up to 8th, and overall 11 universities made the world's top 100 from the UK. Britain is now joint 4th for the most represented countries. But for the first time since 2016, fewer than 50 made the top 500. LSE and Warwick saw their worst results yet, while Liverpool and Leeds recorded their best. And Sir Keir Starmer is launching a 4-week blitz to bring the buzz back to Britain's pubs, making it easier for venues to stay open later, host live music and serve food outdoors. The Prime Minister says that pubs are the beating heart of UK communities and wants to cut red tape holding the industry back. It follows a government review which found outdated licensing rules were shutting down historic venues. Among the changes, scrapping costly newspaper adverts for licence applications and extending temporary event limits. Sir Keir Starmer says when our locals do well, the economy does too. That's it from me. 2 that I know do love a pint in the pub. It's Andrew and Miriam.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with Andrew and Miriam. This is Britain's favourite morning show.
Absolutely. Well, it's a historic day as that peace plan is agreed to help end the war in Gaza, and you've been getting in touch with your views on gbnews.com/your say. And Lizzie Sinclair says, I'm delighted about the deal between Israel and Gaza, but I'm not going to get excited until the hostages are back on Israeli soil. I haven't got any trust in the Gazans. They have a habit of going back on deals, but well done, Trump. And I think that's what a lot of people feel, isn't it, Andrew?
You've got to give that man credit. He's a forceful character. He's the most powerful man in the world, and as somebody, I think, wasn't it Mark White was saying to us earlier, Trump told Netanyahu, you've got to do it. And we shouldn't forget that America has been arming Israel over the last 2 years too. Britain has too, to a minor extent. What's quite interesting, Miriam, we're not in the game, are we, Britain?
No,
we're
we've
not
become
even,
a minor...
We really have.
A kind of second thought in world affairs over the last few years.
Although the idea that Tony Blair is going to be involved in looking after the Gaza post this ceasefire fills me with dread.
Well, Donald Trump has said that Israel and Hamas have actually signed off now on that first phase of the deal. The ceasefire is expected to be declared this afternoon, and
There's Mark White with us now. Mark White, I mean, it is down to Trump, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely...
He's a force of nature.
It absolutely is. And we're showing live pictures there from Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, an area I've been to. It's you cannot help but be moved when you're in that area and you see the families, the people that were taken hostage, the fact that 48 of them are still being held. OK, only 20 are now still alive, but 28 bodies that families want desperately returned as well. And they're celebrating in Hostage Square because they feel that this really has moved into a new phase, that it's much more hopeful now that something can come of this that is more meaningful and long-lasting compared to what we have had over the last couple of years, which are small, short-lived periods of ceasefire, a certain number of hostages released, and then the fighting resumes. Here there is, put forward by President Trump and his team, a 20-point plan. Now, it's not going to be easy. Of course it's not. It's going to be difficult, but it does feel, as I say, that, you know, there is something potentially achievable here. We're expecting that this deal will be ratified by the Israeli cabinet. I should say we're getting mixed reports. Some of the Arab media already reporting that the ceasefire has come into effect. But others, including Reuters, saying they're not quite sure. They think it might be an hour or two yet before that deal is formally ratified by the Israeli cabinet and then signed, inked, and comes into place. And certainly the Israeli military are warning people in the Gaza Strip not to go back into these areas where they have been, you know, told to evacuate because of the fighting. We know that I think close to 10 people have been killed overnight in fighting that is continuing there.
And it's great that the Israeli hostages are coming out, Mark, but actually part of this deal is the deeply worrying sign is how many Gazans, how many Hamas terrorists are going to be freed from Israeli jails. Is it about 1,700?
Yeah, well...
And they'll be radicalised, be even more radicalised by their time in prison.
Yeah.
And we were talking, weren't we, earlier, to the former Israeli government spokesman, Mr. Levy. How do you de-radicalise these people?
Well...
That's the problem.
I mean, how do you de-radicalise people who are taught from primary school age to hate Israel and to, you know, look towards killing Israeli people and wiping them off the map? So it's enormously difficult. And to try to get beyond what has been a generational issue for Palestine is going to be very difficult indeed. But you're right, it's actually 2,000 prisoners who are going to be released. 1,700 of them, as you say, are Gazans, and about 250 wider Palestinians, some of them convicted for murder. So clearly people who have been radicalised, people who have fought the Israelis before going back into that society again. I think much will be really dependent on where we go in terms of just how the Arab neighbours of Israel are responding
well,
to
we're
this.
hearing apparently that Egyptian media are now reporting that the ceasefire is in effect, which is obviously good news. But my question is, what happens next after, let's say the hostages are released and there is this prisoner swap? That's the first phase of the deal. But this is not a symmetrical war. We've got a state, Israel, against a terrorist organisation. And if Hamas, for example, were to break the terms of that ceasefire, if they were to attack an Israeli soldier or something like that, and Israel retaliated and the deal ended, would we be back to square one? Would all the condemnation be on Israel again?
Well, I think it will certainly remain very fragile. There is no doubt about it. And as always with these peace processes, there will be setbacks along the way. I think it's inevitable that something will happen and one of the sides will respond. But if they can get a robust enough deal in place where those Arab nations and other Muslim nations that are buying into this agree to get involved in this interim administration that can, deal and go forward and ensure that there is a government in place in Gaza that is not a terrorist organisation like Hamas, that can look to a more constructive future, then we can get on to the next phase of actually a more permanent government and also the rebuilding of Gaza. There's an awful lot of goodwill right around the world that wants to see Gaza prosper if it's guided in that direction.
What's going to happen here domestically? Are these wretched marches every Saturday in our major towns and cities, particularly the ones I've seen in London, going to continue? Because they are often hate-filled marches. I've heard the anti-Semitic tropes. We know how many Jewish people are too scared to go into our town centres on Saturday afternoons.
If this deal can stick, it's going to take the wind out of the sails of these protests. Why are you going to have them? Unless it is really what lots of people suspect anyway, just about Jew hatred.
Well, yes, exactly.
And, a complete and utter unwillingness to accept the state of Israel. But as I say, if this deal can stick, if we can get periods of time without fighting there, if we can get a government that is taking shape, that seems to be more positive in the attitude that it has towards its Israeli neighbours, and wants to move towards rebuilding and reconciliation, then it does absolutely cut the legs from under those who would want to sow division in these protests every weekend.
And of course, before the October the 7th attacks, Israel was starting to normalise its relationships with some of its Arab neighbours. That relationship has become much more frosty over the last 2 years. But do you think the role of those Arab states, Egypt, Turkey as well, in helping to negotiate this peace signals that actually they're ready to speak to Israel again, they're ready to have some sort of relationship?
Yeah, I think you put your finger on a really good point here. I mean, it was, many people believe the imminent sort of agreement of Saudi Arabia to sign the Abraham Accords, or the Abraham, as Donald Trump has been calling them, that many people felt was one of the motivating factors for October 7th to take place. So again, if this process that other neighbours of Israel now appear to be invested in does have some legs, does have some momentum, we could see the likes of Saudi Arabia signing these deals to have a more positive and constructive relationship with Israel as well. So there are lots of upsides here if they can make this work. But, those who still suffer from the old Trump derangement syndrome are never going to give the President of the United States the credit, that's for sure.
No Trump derangement syndrome in this studio, I can tell you. Absolutely not.
Sure.
So, as I was just about to call you Bev. Freudian slip.
Fine. Well, Egyptian media are reporting that a ceasefire has come into effect, but Israel is saying that it will come into effect after the deal is ratified. So already some disagreement.
Yeah.
Anyway, joining us now is Adam Maniat, whose cousin is Steki Idan, who was taken hostage and killed by Hamas. He's also had 2 other family members who were murdered by the terrorist group.
Good morning to you. Can I just ask, how do you feel today?
Well, it's a day of celebration and exuberance. This is the dream we've been fighting for the last 2 years. The final release of all the remaining hostages is tantalizingly close to us. It seems like all the parties are aligned finally on the sticking points, and we will be hoping to see our loved ones return to their families in the next few days. Possibly as early as Sunday now, I'm hearing. So it's just a really, really momentous event for all of us, and the culmination of 2 years of grief and sorrow and pain and campaigning vociferously for the hostages. So
you lost other family members too. Would you ever be able to trust Hamas?
Never. No one can trust Hamas. Hamas are an evil, brutal, savage terrorist group. Part of this deal that Trump has amazingly got together and gotten the state benefactors of Hamas to agree to and aligned with as well, which is a significant thing to say, is that Hamas have no role to play in the future of Gaza, and that unfortunately we haven't have agreement on the phase 2 part of the deal, which will include discussions about disarming Hamas and exile and the role of the future of the governance of Gaza. But it's been very clear, it's been made very clear that Hamas will have no part to play.
I'm just thinking when Blair's government did the Northern Ireland deal, a bitter price was paid in some respects because some of the IRA terrorists were given comfort letters, effectively exonerating them from any prosecution in the future. I wonder if that's the sort of thing that might happen in phase 2 of the deal with Hamas, that they are, even though they're murdering terrorists, that they avoid any form of international war crimes or prosecution.
It might need to happen. I mean, I have heard that there might, one of the things that have leaked out from the details of the negotiations was a possible amnesty for those members of Hamas who do commit to laying down their arms. So I think that is a significant detail, and if that detail sticks, that would still be probably the price worth paying.
And what's the mood like in Israel? Because this has been the most horrific 2 years for your country, and also some internal divisions as well about how Netanyahu's handling the war, political disagreements. Is this a moment of unity today, and do you think that that can last?
What we do know is that the vast majority of the Israeli people back this deal and support anything that can be done to bring the remaining 48 hostages home. The Israeli society is united around that, and to the credit of Netanyahu, despite opposition from some of his own ministers in his coalition, he has agreed to the deal quite early on, and it was that breakthrough that Trump and Netanyahu announced together that has allowed for the Arab states, especially the state benefactors of Hamas, to get behind it as well. So I think there is some bravery and courage happening here from all sides, and I think it's important that Israeli society also acknowledge the role that the hostage families themselves have played in all this, because it has been them who have led the way and have been beacons of light in the darkness.
Can I just ask you, did you have a view the British government here decided to recognise the Palestinian state without any binding agreement on the return of the hostages? Many people thought that was a mistake and it was a victory for Hamas. What was your view on it?
It was the same as I had the same view. It was a squandered opportunity. It was a completely useless performative gesture that had no material impact on the ground and gave succor to Hamas and Islamic Jihad and other terrorists who saw this as a victory. They immediately, 2 days after Prime Minister Starmer announced his intention to recognize the state of Palestine, Islamic Jihad released a video of a hostage, Ron Blasowski, on his deathbed, sobbing, looking awful. A very harrowing video. The next day, Hamas released a video of Eviatar David looking emaciated, forced to dig his own grave in one of those tunnels. It was very clear that those factions saw the announcement by Starmer and Macron and others as a victory for them, and they were taunting us with those videos. And so shortly after that, the Hamas negotiators broke contact with the negotiation team and imposed new conditions on the release. So it actually set us back. We were very close to a deal, and it set us back. And I was very frustrated with our government for taking that approach when they could have put some conditions on Hamas. They could have incentivized the release of the hostages earlier. Thankfully, the Trump administration did not endorse that political move, and they have continued to pursue this particular deal, which is much more comprehensive and satisfies most of the conditions that the Israeli government needed and other governments needed to ensure that we can actually get these hostages released.
Adam, Monique, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we do wish all the best for that release, that it does go as promised.
And our thoughts are for all the families who have lost, whose the hostages aren't coming home.
Absolutely.
Who were murdered by Hamas. Now, coming up, could this spell a policy, a revival in the polls for the Conservative Party?
Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
Yes, Kemi Badenoch has promised to abolish stamp duty for primary residences in a surprise announcement at the Conservative Party conference.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
For anybody who doesn't know, Huntington's is a rare neurological disorder. It affects the body, mind, and the whole system through a faulty gene passed down through families. It just causes absolute havoc. It affects everything, every part of you, and it's in the most horrendous way. And the knock-on effect of all the families it affects is enormous. It really is. So.
Well, as we heard there from the professor, he says this changes everything. Is that how you see this, as a major breakthrough?
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we've been hoping for, but we're a pretty realistic bunch as well. But I still can't believe it, to be perfectly honest. I keep pinching myself and thinking, oh my God, is this actually happening? Because that's how much it means, it really does. We'll try and do our bit for charities and, raise the funds for UCL so they can do these amazing trials and get involved as much as we can, but still.
I mean, it's not as straightforward as having an injection or taking a pill. I mean, I've read that it involves an 18-hour operation during which this particular drug is actually injected into the brain and starts to affect the DNA.
18 hours of brain surgery. I'd take 180 hours of brain surgery over the horrors that lie ahead with Huntington's disease. So, to some people it might sound pretty grueling, but actually it's just the most exciting thought, having the opportunity given to us to be in this position, to go to surgery and, make a real difference.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 28 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Got the panel here, broadcaster journalist Carol Malone and political commentator Jonathan Liston. Jonathan, I can say yet again, you were absolutely fabulous last week.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew.
The Manchester synagogue killings was unfolding while we were on air, and you were fantastic.
Oh, I appreciate that, thank you.
Jewish and helped us through it, because it was a very complicated, fast-moving story.
It was
indeed. And what are these guys talking about? Badenoch.
Was it? Yes.
So
yes.
I was there,
yes.
And I hadn't heard a Tory conference applaud a leader in that way for years and years. It was quite unusual. We had a Tory leader speaking like a Conservative. Fancy that.
You know,
how novel and
it
original.
was a barnstorming speech, and as I was watching it, I was thinking she's saying a lot of the stuff that we want to hear, but a lot of it was out of the reform playbook, apart from the stamp duty stuff, which would be fantastic if it happened. But I'm just wondering, if she can do that at a conference, why can't she behave and deliver stuff like that when she's at PMQs? When she's at PMQ, she's never prepared. She never, you know, she's against the worst government we've had for the past 60 years. And yet she, you know, and Starmer gives her a million own goals and he never takes the kick. She never takes the kick. And I'm thinking, why could she be like that on one day?
Well,
and yet she hasn't been like that for 15 months.
There's no doubt she's had some form of
She
training,
must have had,
because
yeah.
she delivered the speech well. She was amusing. I've never seen her being amusing before, ever.
No.
And she can often be a charm-free zone. She was enjoying herself.
She comes
up on
across
that platform
as a passionless woman to me.
Yeah.
I don't mean, I'm not talking sexually, I'm talking about the job, about what she does. I'm talking about, she just stands there and she's deadpan when she's having a go at people. And I'm thinking, but yesterday it was amazing. But let's not forget, it was a speech. It was just a speech. It was words.
It was just a speech. But what was interesting about not just that speech, but the conference as a whole, is that finally a policy platform was beginning to be announced. And there's been lots of criticism of her over the last year that they haven't announced policy quickly enough. That's allowed reform to get ahead. And perhaps, Jonathan, this is the moment that latent Conservatives have been waiting for, something to hang their hat on.
Well, look, part of the problem is structural and part of the problem is specific. Structurally, people are absolutely sick of the Conservatives. They have seen no reason to give the Conservatives a second chance a year after they saw the Conservatives as having destroyed the country and giving them a rightful kicking. So it would be strange for the public to run back to the Tories, the people who they just kind of, you know, given that battering to after 1 year. Yes. And then you have the specificity of the problem, which is Badenoch's personality, which, as you have noted, as you know, she has come across as being incredibly abrasive, obnoxious, not coverable in any way, not warm. And yeah, it's maybe true that there is a kind of sexism in politics where women are expected to be more empathetic or whatever. But actually, I don't think it really is about that. I think it's about her personality. And then third, it's about the policies that she has and hasn't espoused. Obviously, a policy-free zone, so Reform has been able to steal a march. But when she does announce policies, they've also alienated a big rump of the Conservative base. So obviously, Miriam, if you are a Reform voter or a likely Reform voter, why would you vote for the Conservatives' Ersatz version when you can just vote for the full fat red?
What policies alienated Conservative voters?
The Surrey stockbrokers, who are the small L liberals, the people who would always, the Cameroons, the people who would come.
They've already gone.
Well, a lot of them are still there. A lot of them did vote for the Liberals. But Andrew, here's the point: if you're at 120 seats and you say, "Well, fine, the people who've gone, we don't need you anymore," then you are never going to.
But somebody described it yesterday. I saw a line somewhere, and they described the whole Tory conference as a whole as being like a New Orleans funeral. Lots of lights, lots of colour, lots of noise, but there'd been a death there. And they were saying this was the death of the Tories. And I have to say, apart from that speech yesterday, that's what I felt.
See, I was there for almost the whole time, not as many hours as Andrew, and I did not recognise that at all. It was definitely quieter, there's no doubt about that.
Well, we saw it, empty halls.
But, absolutely, although it's some time, actually, since people queued up to watch Cabinet or Shadow Cabinet Secretaries. A lot of the activity is on the fringes. But what I did notice was that there is this growing tension between young Conservatives, and yes, there are still a few, and older ones, about what the party starts to say on things like the triple lock, on building homes. Those are going to be the challenges for the party going forward, because almost all of its vote now is over 65. But if it's going to have a future, it's going to have to do something.
Don't you think she's made a mistake by saying she's never going to do a pact with Reform? Because Reform are centre political stage at the moment, and they will remain so.
A hostile takeover, they'd eat them alive. They'd lose their brand. Why would a Conservative agree to that?
You don't have to say you will, but you don't have to rule it out, because people who are thinking of maybe voting Reform, but who don't really want to, Tories, might stick with the Tories if she'd said, well, who knows, nearer the time, whatever, however you put it, I don't know how you phrase it.
But you know how everyone always says they're not going to do a pact, and then push comes to
But then that makes you look stupid. It makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about.
And I don't think the big problem is Badenoch's leadership. I think the problem for the Tories is the brand. People are just fed up with the Tories. They hate the Tories. They had 14 years and they blew it.
Have we seen any polls yet? Have we seen
we won't see any
her speech?
And also, it would be quite reasonable. Like, I think that we could certainly have a debate about the stamp duty, about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think there are arguments on both sides.
We will come back to that because we've got to go to the news, but we'll definitely come back to that in the next hour. So here's your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. 10:30, the top story this hour. Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan, a major step towards a permanent end to 2 years of war. The president says hostages and prisoners will be exchanged, Israeli troops will withdraw, and more aid allowed into Gaza. He spoke to Fox News just hours after the deal was agreed.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's brought peace to the world, I'm telling you.
Sir Keir Starmer has hailed that agreement as a moment of profound relief that he says will be felt around the world. If approved by Israel's cabinet this afternoon, a ceasefire could begin within hours. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is in India meeting President Modi on what's been called a historic trade mission. He's unveiling new businesses and firm deals, film deals even, saying the UK-India partnership could boost Britain's economy by nearly £5 billion a year. Millions of households in England are facing even higher water bills after 5 suppliers won their appeal to raise bills. The watchdog allowed an extra 3% rise on top of Ofwat's already approved 36% increase. Hate crimes across England and Wales have risen for the first time in 3 years, up 2% to now nearly 116,000. Race and religious hate crimes hit record highs, driven by a near 20% spike in anti-Muslim offences. And the Prime Minister is eyeing longer pub opening hours in a bid to revive Britain's struggling hospitality sector. He's launched a 4-week blitz consultation to cut red tape, making it easier for pubs to stay open later, play live music and serve food outside. That's the news on GB News. More from me in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, still ahead, it is a historic day, and we will be crossing back to Israel as the first phase of the Gaza peace deal is agreed. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any fog patches soon clearing away this morning, leaving a mostly bright day for many, though some drizzly outbreaks expected at times in the west. So Northern Ireland, southwestern parts of Scotland, also northwest England, will see a constant feed of drizzle out from the west, so it could be quite damp at times here, particularly across any hilly areas. Elsewhere, we'll see a mix of cloud, also some bright, if not sunny spells at times, and where we see those, it will feel warm and pleasant in the sunshine. Highs reaching around 17 to 18, possibly 19 degrees Celsius across parts of the southeast. Even eastern Scotland should see a warm afternoon. Now we'll start to see a change across Scotland through the course of the afternoon. It could turn quite breezy, particularly around coastal areas in the west. And once again, we'll see this constant feed of cloud, some drizzle, particularly across western hilly areas. Though slightly drier and brighter end to the day across the far east of Scotland. Northern Ireland, similar, fairly cloudy with some drizzle at times. Northwest England could see fairly similar conditions. Even across Wales, we could also see some drizzle across the hills. But for most areas, it should be another dry night. But once again, we'll see plenty of cloud start to feed its way in from the west. The best of the clearer skies are probably going to be across eastern England, but where we see any prolonged clear spells, that means we could be in for a chance of mist and fog during the very early hours of Friday. With plenty of cloud around, that does mean it should be a mostly mild night. Many towns and cities dropping around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius. So for the end of the week, it could be quite a grey, gloomy start, particularly across western Scotland, where we'll continue to see drizzly outbreaks. But through the course of the morning, that cloud should lift and break, any mist and fog clearing away, and that should allow some sunshine to develop, particularly across eastern Scotland, northeastern parts of England, though parts of southern England and Wales could hold on to that cloud through much of the afternoon. But still, once again, where we see the bright and sunny spells, it should be another warm day, highs of around 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Use caution on the A9 1000 Forth Road Bridge due to high winds. Expect congestion on the A470 southbound between Nantgarv and Corryton. In Tameside, a tyre change on the M60 clockwise between junctions 23 and 24 has closed one lane. Avoid the A1 northbound in Lincolnshire between the A151 and the A607 due to a vehicle fire closing all lanes. There's congestion on the A34 northbound in West Berkshire between the M4 and the A4185. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Burton-on-Trent and Derby, as well as between Brockenhurst and Southampton Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom.
So Britain's most senior prosecutor and the former Cabinet Secretary Simon Case, Lord Case, they're effectively blaming Labour for the collapse of the China spy trial after this government repeatedly refused to describe Beijing as a national security threat.
Well, joining us now is the former Conservative Party leader, Ian Duncan-Smith. Ian, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, the collapse of this case seems to hinge on the government not being willing to provide a witness in courts to claim that China is a threat to Britain's national security. Why do you think that is?
Well, actually, all they had to do was produce a witness statement, about the nature and if the China was a threat, and they completely refused to do anything for months. The DPP was asking them, because they were ready to go to court, will you provide the statement? And they just didn't reply. They deliberately fogged it and didn't bother. And of course, knowing full well at some point the DPP is going to have to make the decision to cancel the case. So they knew what they were doing. It was slimy and duplicitous, but this government's got a bad habit of being slimy and duplicitous now. And the interesting thing about all of this is, if we just take you through the timeline, it's fascinating. First of all, back when we were back in the House between the summer break and between the conference break, the Securities Minister came to the House and said that the thing wasn't going ahead. Why wasn't it going ahead? He said no ministers were involved, because people say, did ministers get involved? No ministers were involved. Notice carefully, use of the ministers, not people in Downing Street. And then he said that the whole thing came down to the CPS. It was their decision and their decision alone, and showed crocodile tears over the fact they hadn't done it. That rumbled on for a few weeks until finally the DPP had had enough of this blame game, and he came out and said, not true. We didn't prosecute because the government didn't cooperate. And if the government doesn't cooperate, we don't have a case. And we only asked them to do that. In which case, then, the whole thing blows up again the last few days. The government then wheels out Starmer, ex-DPP, and he said, oh, no, we couldn't have done because the UK government at the time, the Conservatives, hadn't declared that China was a threat. So overnight, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, which I helped set up, dug through what had actually happened, and we came across this, which is really interesting, and I'm going to have to just read it very briefly to you because it kills everything the Prime Minister said. In what was called the Integrated Review for the government in 2023, 1 month before the prosecution was due to start, they came up with this very interesting statement about China. The UK will further strengthen our national security protections in those areas where, not if, where the actions of the CCP pose a threat to our people, prosperity and security. This means protecting ourselves at home. That means that the government position in 2023 was very clear. It was that China posed a threat, because that was the key statement. It's not that the government had done this or hadn't done that. It's that the statement said they posed a threat. So when he came out, Starmer, and said that no, we couldn't have prosecuted them because of what was in the Tory thing, he's talking rubbish. And in fact, they were trying to then cover their own ineptitude, stupidity, and malfeasance, as far as I can make out, because Jonathan Powell has had his hands behind this all along. They also didn't publish at the time the great supposed China audit, which was meant to give you a very clear steer as to where the China was a threat. They didn't publish it in the end. And that was, again, Jonathan Powell's involvement trying to kill it.
And
So what's
Jonathan
going on
Powell
here?
Jonathan Powell is the Prime Minister's national security advisor, a very key and important figure behind the scenes.
And had previous very strong links, business links in China. So did Mandelson, by the way, and therefore very heavily involved before he was brought in. So all I'm saying now is, when the Prime Minister comes out, we yet again and again, we seem to have this, where they've tortuously weaved a web of deceit, and then finally it blows, which is what this is. But this is national security. And if the Prime Minister is making a statement in which is supposed to be a truthful statement, it is not truthful. And therefore, we will be calling for all sorts of things on Monday, most of all, hauling them to the House to say that you have misled everybody here in Parliament. The Speaker was furious because it meant we as MPs were really under the cosh now. China can do anything it damn well please, as far as I can make out in Parliament, and we can't do anything about it. I'm a sanctioned MP, so I'm constantly followed by low-level operatives from China. And all I can say is, why did they do this? Well, it's very simple. They're in Project Kowtow to China for some spurious, bloody, excuse my language, trade deal.
Ian, we are going to have to leave it there, and that's not because of your language, just because we're out of time. But thank you so much for joining us on such an important story.
We have to read a response from the Cabinet Office, which now, look at the words carefully. Ian Duncan Smith made this point. They say Labour ministers have not been involved in any decisions over the evidence, but what about officials? The government denied any political pressure was applied on the Crown Prosecution Service to drop the case. And just to remind you, Jonathan Powell, who's up to his neck in this, was appointed personally to that job by the Prime Minister.
Well, we will be following that closely, including when the Commons returns, because there will be some questions to answer.
Will be.
But coming up next, now that a Gaza peace deal has been signed, does this finally mean an end to pro-Palestine protests in this country?
But first, the weather forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Some unsettled weather across eastern areas of Spain. Storm Alice is set to bring heavy showers and also some thunderstorms. Mostly dry and settled across Madeira and also Tenerife, but all eyes on eastern areas of Spain. Some intense thunderstorms here likely to bring some localised flooding. A few showers across parts of Sardinia on Friday, but elsewhere, once again, mostly dry and settled. Plenty of sunshine, and this theme will continue over into the weekend, with warm temperatures too, widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
That was a biscuit moment. Got to be honest.
I thought I'd hidden that.
No.
I thought I'd go away with it.
Digestive.
So
Yeah,
you're
digestive's on a Thursday because Miriam has failed to bake her cake this
I'm
week.
doing it tomorrow, but I know you're not here tomorrow, so I'll save you a piece.
How nice is that? Baking it tomorrow. What are you baking?
I haven't decided yet.
Bake something
It's been a
chocolate,
long
'cause
week.
I don't like chocolate.
OK, I'll do chocolate brownies with chocolate sauce and everything.
Yeah, not for me. Now, it's an historic day. The peace plan is agreed to help end the war in Gaza.
But given the circumstances, should the pro-Palestine protest be cancelled this weekend?
Why would they even want to hold it?
No.
Well, what's the point? It doesn't matter with these people.
Well, to debate this, we're joined by the political commentators Kane Blackwell and Paul Connew. Good morning to you both. Thank you very much. Paul, let's start with you. These protests have been going on since October the 7th, 2023. Do you think it's time that they stopped?
No, only if the organisers want to stop. But it's an encouraging phase one breakthrough in the Gaza tragedy, if you like, but it's a long way to go. There could be many slips yet, and I think they should go ahead, if provided they are peaceful and provided the organisers want to go ahead. So I doubt this is going to suddenly produce an instant let's cancel everything and go and stay at home. I don't think that's going to happen.
Kane, I'm not a banner. I don't like banner things, but although last Saturday I would have hoped the Mayor of Greater Manchester and the Home Secretary would have intervened to say the march in Manchester should have been postponed because of what had happened just 2 days earlier. But do you think the marches should be banned by the government if this ceasefire kicks in?
I don't think they should go ahead, and like I say, and like you say, Andrew, I don't like banning things in general, but I do think these marches for far too long have been causing huge fear in the Jewish community. So many Jewish people feel unsafe on the streets in this country, which I think is a crying shame. But also, the fact is that imagine if these, week after week, these marches were anti-Palestine, anti-Muslim marches. They would not be allowed. Because they are anti-Jewish and anti-Israel, they have been allowed to continue, and I think that is wrong. It's a double standard, it's two-tier justice as we see throughout the country. But what I would say as well is this peace deal is a fantastic opportunity, and I think we need to praise President Trump. I hope Paul will as well. I hope everyone on every side will praise President Trump for what his leadership in doing this, because now is a time for reflection, now is a time for peace, reconciliation. We need to take the hate, we need to take the anger out of this moment, and actually these marches will not help that peace process. We need to actually have a time of real reconciliation and reflection, and I think that's really important.
Paul, while I wouldn't ban these marches, I do think the way they're policed is woeful, because I've been to some of them to observe, and there are horrible anti-Semitic phrases used constantly, and I hear them chanting death to the IDF, death to the IDF. That's the Israeli Defence Force. So they're calling for the death of young men and women who've been conscripted into the Israeli army. It's appalling language, and it should be stopped.
Look, indeed, I have Jewish friends who have their own divided opinion on what's happened in Gaza, but some of them have taken part in these marches. I argued against the marches going ahead last weekend, and indeed on October the 7th, because that requires sensitivity. But I think there's a grave danger of banning things, whether it's the pro-Palestinian marches, even whether it's anti-migrant marches, and they have proved far more violent than the pro-Palestinian marches. And we have a tradition in this country of the right to protest. And I've got a feeling that the current government, and I'm a Labour supporter broadly, are showing signs of adopting a draconian approach to protests generally.
But Kane, I don't think... I'm really sorry, Kane and Paul. That's all we've got time for, unfortunately. But thank you so much for joining us. Andrew, although I think the Palestine Action Group are terrible, I think banning it was a mistake because it's made them... It's like toddlers when you pay too much attention to them.
They weren't a terrorist organisation, were they?
Well, in a historic moment, the Gaza peace deal is expected to be signed later today, and we'll bring you all the latest on that. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. High pressure is now moving in from the west. That means it's going to be fine for many of us today with some sunshine out there, although a lot of cloud at the same time, particularly towards the northwest of the country where we're on the periphery of the high pressure, and a strong breeze will continue into the north and northwest of Scotland, along with thicker cloud and some patches of rain here and there, some spots of rain for Northern Ireland into northwest England as well. But away from those areas, actually it's dry, it's settled, and the best of the sunshine through the rest of the day will be across South Wales, southern England and parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland. Feeling pleasant where the sun shines with temperatures above average for the time of year. Now, overnight, we keep the cloudy zones through central and northwestern parts of the country. Where we do get clear spells towards the far south, temperatures will fall away after dark, but in the northwest, a lot of cloud and still some drizzly rain for Northern Ireland, northwestern, western Scotland, especially for western hills of Scotland, but some decent cloud breaks there for eastern Scotland, northeast England, as well as the cloud breaks up over higher ground to the west. And as we go through the nights, some cloud will filter south, but southwest England likely to stay mostly clear, and it's here that temperatures will fall the furthest, with a few mist and fog patches forming by dawn, with light winds expected here as well, temperatures into the single figures. Eastern Scotland as well, some bright weather first thing, but a lot of cloud elsewhere across the country. Some light showers into the Midlands, northwest England, and that will stick around into the afternoon. But actually it progressively gets brighter in many places. Certainly a brighter day for the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. Wales, northern England and eastern Scotland. Temperatures reaching 18 or 19 Celsius.
Today,
you could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live, every night at midnight.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 9th of October, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, it's a historic day as a peace plan is agreed to end the war in Gaza. Donald Trump says Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of that deal, and a ceasefire is expected to come into effect this evening, and hostages could be released as early as this weekend.
Just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
And what an extraordinary emotional moment that would be when they are finally released. And the Prime Minister has spoken from India, he's abroad of course, saying that the deal could finally bring peace to the Middle East.
This is a moment of profound relief that we felt around the world, but particularly for the hostages, their families, and for the civilian population of Gaza.
Well, unusually, we're seeing celebrations both in Israel and in Gaza. The news of this deal, we're expecting now that it will come into effect later this evening.
And does Donald Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in the Middle East? Well, the US president claims to have ended 6 wars and says it's an insult to the US if he doesn't receive the medal.
And the Work and Pension Secretary, Pat McFadden, told GB News that the President of the United States deserves an awful lot of credit.
I don't know if that will happen, but...
Do you want it to happen?
Well, it's for the Nobel Committee, but I do think he deserves some great credit.
Elsewhere, we'll be discussing the scandal that some say could bring down Keir Starmer, as a former top civil servant challenges the official explanation for why that trial into alleged Chinese spies collapsed.
Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
So is that the policy that could spark a revival for the Conservative Party, which is so far behind in the polls? Kemi Badenoch promising to abolish stamp duty for primary homes. It was an announcement that caught everybody by surprise, including 99% of her own shadow cabinet. The reason that didn't leak, Miriam, because, as you know, things leak normally, it was kept so tight. It was Kemi Badenoch, her Shadow Chancellor, Samel Stride, and mine saying that was it. Nobody else knew, and her most senior officials and his, because if you've got 22 shadow ministers, they're going to tell somebody, and it would leak.
Yeah.
And the reason that went down so well yesterday, it was such a surprise.
That's right. And all the other speeches throughout the week, all the policy announcements were trailed in advance.
They were.
The newspapers were printing them in the morning.
Yeah.
We were announcing them in the morning before the speech was actually made, which gives it more coverage, but it doesn't encourage people to attend the speech or watch it or pay much attention. So I think that was a masterstroke, a rabbit out of the hat.
Really was, and a very large white rabbit. Now, whether people are listening beyond the Conservative Party conference, we'll know soon when we hear the polls, but I thought it was an outstanding speech by Kemi Badenoch.
And of course, a lot of people now will be thinking, well, potentially, after the next election, if the Conservatives were to win, I mean, that looks extremely unlikely, but perhaps Reform will also promise to cut stamp duty. People will be wondering if it's worth moving in the next 4 years. So it could actually stagnate the housing market before a potential boom. Well, we'll have to see.
I'd love to know what Angela Rayner thinks about the decision to abolish
well,
stamp
I'll tell you what she can do. She could go on gbnews.com/your say. Angela, if you're listening.
First, headlines with Sam Francis.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. 11 o'clock. Historic and unprecedented. Those are the words of President Donald Trump as Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of his Gaza peace plan, seen as a major step towards a permanent end to now 2 years of war. Well, crowds of people have been seen celebrating in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square since that announcement was made. The plan would see Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners released, Israeli forces withdrawn, and hundreds of aid trucks allowed into Gaza each day. Israel's government is due to meet from around 5 o'clock this evening local time to discuss the agreement, which, if approved, would mean a ceasefire could begin within just hours. Hamas has confirmed the agreement but says it is still waiting on the final list of prisoners to be freed. Trump says Gaza will be rebuilt once the first phase is complete. Here's what he had to say to Fox News just hours after the deal was announced.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's brought peace to the world, I'm telling you.
Here, Keir Starmer has called that agreement on the first phase of the peace plan a moment of profound relief. The Prime Minister praised the tireless diplomatic efforts of the US, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey in moving towards peace. He says the deal must now be implemented in full without delay, with restrictions on humanitarian aid to Gaza lifted immediately.
Strongly welcome the news that a deal has been reached on the first stage of the peace plan in Gaza. This is a moment of profound relief that we felt around the world, but particularly for the hostages, their families, and for the civilian population of Gaza.
Meanwhile, Keir Starmer has been given a bold welcome in India, with streets in Mumbai lined with thousands of photos of him and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On his first official visit to the country, he's leading a record delegation of more than 100 UK business, university and cultural leaders on that 2-day trade mission. He's unveiled new business and film deals, saying the UK-India partnership could boost Britain's economy by nearly £5 billion a year. Sir Keir has also announced 3 Bollywood films will soon be filmed in the UK, ending an 8-year hiatus. Here, millions of households across England face even higher water bills after 5 major suppliers won an appeal to the UK's competition regulator. Anglian, Northumbrian, Southern, Wessex and South East Water can now raise their bills by an extra 3%. That's on top of Ofwat's approved increases. The watchdog says it's to help cover rising borrowing costs, but insists most of the company's requests were largely unjustified. It means customers will shoulder part of the £550 million in extra revenue granted to the firms. Thames Water's separate appeal, though, has been delayed as it works on a rescue deal. Well, figures out this morning have shown that hate crimes in England and Wales have risen for the first time in 3 years, with sharp increases in racially and religiously motivated offences. The Home Office says anti-Muslim hate crimes jumped nearly 20%, fuelled by unrest after the Southport murders and riots last summer. Religious hate crimes overall hit a record high, up 3%, while race hate offences rose 6% to more than 82,000. Crimes targeting Jewish people dropped by 18%, but that's outside London. Figures exclude data from the Met Police. In total, police logged more than 137,000 hate crimes across England and Wales in the past year. Oxford has topped the World University rankings for the 10th year in a row. Cambridge and Imperial also landing in the global top 10. Cambridge climbing to join 3rd, Imperial moving to 8th, and overall 11 UK universities made the world's top 100. The UK is now joint 4th for the most represented country, but for the first time since 2016, fewer than 50 made the top 500. LSE and Warwick saw their worst results yet, while Leeds and Liverpool recorded their best. And Sir Keir Starmer is launching a 4-week blitz to bring the buzz back to Britain's pubs, making it easier for venues to stay open later, host live music and serve food outdoors. The Prime Minister says pubs are the beating heart of the UK community and wants to cut red tape holding the industry back. It follows a government review which found outdating licensing rules were shutting down historic venues. Sir Keir Starmer says that when our locals do well, the economy does too. You're up to date just after 11 o'clock. I'll be back with you shortly. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here are the 11 o'clock markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.3367 and €1.1505. The price of gold, £3,016.91, that's per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,504 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So can't be underestimated the importance of today, because it appears this peace plan has been agreed which could end the war in Gaza.
Well, Donald Trump, the US president, says that Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of this deal. The ceasefire is expected to be declared this afternoon. And here in the studio to discuss it is Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. Welcome back, Mark. This is historic. This is the closest, certainly, we've had to peace in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and you can tell that the mood around this is one of optimism, despite the undoubted hurdles that it will face, given that it's a 20-point peace plan. But the fact is, looking at these images here, both in Gaza and in Israel itself, we are seeing celebrations, people finally believing that after 2 years, following the 7th of October attacks, that we might be at a stage where they can look forward to some kind of a more constructive process going forward that's not just this relentless war in Gaza.
And what happens? Who literally, Mark, is going to sit down and sign the peace document?
Well, it'll be signed by both parties, both the Israelis and those representing Hamas.
So Netanyahu's going to have to sit down with Hamas, and that'll be an uncomfortable meeting.
Well, I'm not sure who will do the signing, whether it will be at that level, but certainly we're told that from the American side, leaving now immediately for the region ahead of the signing is President Trump's representatives in these talks.
And his son-in-law
Steve
is there
Witkoff
too.
And Jared Kushner.
He's a real player in all of this.
Oh, absolutely has been, yeah. I think also he's probably been responsible for taking Tony Blair on board as well as part of this interim
what did the Middle East do to deserve him? I mean, if he hasn't caused enough trouble in the Middle East with his war in Iraq in 2003.
But some of this is what contacts you have, isn't it? And he's incredibly experienced. He's been around a long time. He will know the key players in the region.
Well, listen, he did amazing work for the Rwandan government. Yes. They got Tony Blair and his, fellowship involved in the reconstruction of Rwanda and really transformed the capital, Kigali. You go there and it's incredible what has happened there. Still a little bit more to do in the reputation of the country, but he's been involved in that.
And of course very successul in bringing together the Good Friday Agreement and securing peace in Northern Ireland.
That was his great achievement.
It's good in everyone, Andrew.
Yeah.
Well, put the visceral hatred of the man to one side.
Visceral? Just hatred. Just hatred, Mark.
He is, without a doubt, a formidable politician.
He's a great operator.
If you compare him to the current Labour Prime Minister, to what Tony Blair was in his time, whether you agreed with his policies or not, there's no doubt he was, in terms of a figure, a very sort of accomplished and statesman-like Prime Minister, even though he led us into illegal wars.
Yeah, and he was a Prime Minister who was a doer. Things got done.
Yes,
him.
Changed the country
for
good or ill. He changed the government permanently.
For ill, in my view.
Now, this is not just a faraway war over territory. It has spilled onto the streets of Britain. We've been already talking about those Palestine protests that have been a regular feature of life in London for the last 2 years. But we've got the new hate crime statistics out today that the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has published, which shows, perhaps unsurprisingly, that the highest rate of religious hate crime is against Jewish people, the highest on record, a 20%, nearly 20% increase in the last year alone. Not surprising, but also terrible.
Well, it does show just very starkly how these events that we think, are thousands of miles away and irrelevant, are not irrelevant to quite a number of people, and a growing number of people, because of the way in which we've had mass migration from that part of the world as well, where more and more people are engaged with what is happening in the Middle East, and that plays out in our streets. And it has to be hoped, of course, that if we go forward and we can have a more constructive and meaningful process that leads to a longer lasting peace in that region, then that will take out some of the sort of heat that we're seeing here in the UK, because it's been horrific in terms of the way in which members of the Jewish community have absolutely been targeted, and targeted regularly with these weekend protests. But we've also seen, of course, hate crime against the Muslim population increased as well, exacerbated by the likes of the events in Southport a year or so ago.
Yeah, well, I for one hope these marches stop. I'm sick to death of them. We don't need them anymore.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
They've made their point, haven't they, frankly?
Absolutely.
Mark, thanks. Let's talk now to Noam Sagi, whose mother was held hostage by Hamas for more than 50 days in Gaza. For the families of the hostages, Miriam, this will be the most extraordinary 48 hours, won't it?
Absolutely, and that is surely the most important part of the first stage of this agreement, is to have the hostages released. But it's still not clear what the prospects are for a long-term peace. It seems to involve a gradual withdrawal by the Israelis from the Gaza Strip, but it's not clear how those released areas, if you like, will be policed, will be ruled who by, whether or not terrorists will take hold of them again.
And also, what state are those hostages going to be in after 2 years incarcerated, locked in dark tunnels? Well, let's talk to Noam Sagi, whose mother was held hostage by Hamas for more than 50 days in Gaza. Good morning to you. An extraordinary day.
Extraordinary day indeed. Extraordinary night and morning, and the next few days will unfold a story that for 2 years is just going from bad to worse, and hopefully this is really the beginning of the end of this.
There does seem a lot more hope among Israelis this time that Hamas will actually keep to the deal and release the hostages. What do you think is the reason for that hope?
It's a very interesting question. I think there is very little trust in the region for a long time, and especially from the 7th of October, I think this has gone down to ground zero. I think there is a sheer belief that when Trump came in and he said this is what's going to happen, and it's happening, no one is now going to start to... Yes, there are nuances, but from all the wrong reasons, and it doesn't matter why, it's happening, and it's happening now, and it will happen.
And how did your family feel about this? Because your own mother was held hostage by Hamas for more than 50 days. These hostages being held for 2 years. The impact on them will be profound.
It's... First, we need to see them back home, and we need to really see them stepping on safe, loving soil where they will be embraced and loved by the family and reconnect. But you're absolutely right. I think we are You know, my mom was in captivity for 53 days. She was held by Islamic Jihad. And we are still recovering. It's a long, lonely, difficult process. It's not really end when they're coming back. This is where there is another process that will start.
Can I ask, how did they treat her?
You know, because my mom was held by Islamic Jihad, and the Islamic Jihad needed their money from the Hamas, they treated her like a diamond because they had to protect her. Right. So in a weird way, you know, in a funny old, you know, the way this universe works, it worked in her favor. She's an Arabic teacher. She knows the language. She knew how to communicate with the captors. And she understood that she held the power in this situation. So, you know, it was, of course, horrible, bruising, traumatizing experience. Someone take your freedom away, take you into, but you know, at least under the circumstances, she is very strong human being and managed to try and get as much as at least cognition and understanding of the moments in her favor.
And are you hopeful for a long-term peace? Do you think the subsequent stages of this deal, after the hostages have been released and there's been that prisoner swap, do you think there is a prospect of lasting peace between Israel and Gaza?
Again, you know, if you asked me the same question a week ago, I would say that sounds completely out of touch. Because I don't think that this is where the people are. What happened after the 7th of October, you know, peace is not a word that represents not the streets in Israel. I don't know anything about the streets in Khan Yunis, in Rafah, or Gaza. But reality is stronger than anything else. And I think the politics will have to adjust, and we will have to see what will happen and what the process that will take from here on. I honestly believe, and I believed from day one, that the key for this going forward would be the Saudi involvement. I think that the 7th of October was a result, or it is a result of trying to derail the Saudis from joining the Abraham Accord. And I think if they will get involved again, there is a real chance that the Middle East will be a completely different environment going forward.
All right, well, lovely to talk to you, and on this very special day for you and for your family. That's Naim Saki. Sagi's mother was held hostage for 53 days. Let's talk now to the former Labour Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. Jeff Hoon, good morning to you. This is...
Good morning.
It's hugely significant. We just hope that the ceasefire will last and that these hostages will finally be brought home.
It is a significant achievement for President Trump, and what is really important is that this is not just in of itself a deal, but it is the first step, as you were asking earlier about what are the longer-term implications of what is about to happen.
And what do you think are those longer-term implications? Of course, back in your time when you were in the cabinet, in the Labour government, it was perhaps the closest we ever came to a two-state solution, to a lasting agreement at the Camp David summit, I think in 2000 under Bill Clinton. But of course, that was famously junked at the last minute. It failed. Do you think there is now a second chance at a long-term peace?
Well, I visited Gaza and Israel in 1999, and we were actually negotiating some final stages of a peace agreement. Now, of course, we're at the preliminary stages of a new opportunity. And it's really important that we take that opportunity, that the international community works together to put pressure, particularly on Prime Minister Netanyahu, but also on the Palestinians, to reach a deal. I think what's significant about what is about to happen is that for the first time, it would appear, President Trump has been prepared to put pressure on the Israeli government. And frankly, he needs to continue that pressure, because although we have seen a terrible tragedy unfold in Gaza over the last 2 years, 2 years of misery for Israelis and for the Palestinians, nevertheless, what's really important to me at the moment is what is happening in the West Bank. And what is happening in the West Bank demonstrates a determination by parts of the Israeli government to absolutely refuse the prospect of a Palestinian state. And that is key. That is key to all of the discussions that have taken place over many years. Without a Palestinian state, there can be no long-term security for Israel and no long-term peace in the region.
Jeff, one of the issues will be Hamas sign up to this ceasefire, but how do they ensure that the men who fought for Hamas, the people who support the Hamas creed, which is to obliterate Israel, how do they de-radicalise them? How do they turn them away from their lifelong quest to be rid of Israel completely?
That's an extremely good question, and I frankly don't entirely have an answer, but I think we're too focused on Hamas. I've well understood why Israel was reluctant over many years to negotiate with a terrorist organisation whose ambition was to drive Israel into the sea. You can't do a deal with those kinds of people. Having said that, there are very many pragmatic, sensible Palestinians who are not supporters of Hamas, who want to see a peace, who want to see a Palestinian state, who want to see a region that no longer is beholden to terrorism. Hamas can play no part in that. I believe that the solution is actually to get those people who have some sort of sympathy for Hamas to recognize that it's in the interests both of Israel and of the Palestinians to secure a Palestinian state, but to secure a long-term solution to the present difficulties that have faced this region for so long now. There are many Palestinians who long for peace, who are not supporters of Hamas, and therein, I think, lies the solution.
And yet, coming back to the West Bank, one of the problems undermining the potential for peace is the fact that there hasn't been an election in the West Bank. It must be coming up for 20 years now, partly because the Palestinian Authority fear that if they did call an election, Hamas would win it.
No, that's absolutely correct, and I can't argue against that fact, but nevertheless, I think if we are able to show in the international community a determination to bring about a solution, to bring about a Palestinian state, and crucially that depends on the views of President Trump and his determination to bring that about and to put pressure on the present Israeli government, then that I think will change entirely the dynamic of what is happening in that part of the world. Because if there is some prospect of a solution, some prospect of a Palestinian state, some prospect of peace, that will transform the attitude of the majority of Palestinians, some of whom, as you rightly say, may be sympathetic to Hamas because Hamas has appeared to be standing up for the Palestinians in recent times. But that standing up has involved slaughter of large numbers of Israelis and large numbers of Palestinians. And that is not the basis on which a peace can be achieved.
Jeff Hoon, thank you so much, as ever, for joining us and sharing your thoughts.
Next, we're going to be talking about that ongoing scandal, which will not go away for the government, over the alleged Chinese spies. Some are even saying it could bring down Sir Keir Starmer. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News. I don't think it'll bring it down.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 29 minutes past 11 and we are joined again by our fantastic panel, broadcaster and journalist Carol Malone and political commentator Jonathan Liss here in the studio. Welcome back to you both. Now, Jonathan, let's start with the major announcement from the Conservative Party conference yesterday that should the Conservatives come to power next time...
And that's a very big should.
Yes.
Has to be said.
Yes. That they will scrap stamp duty on primary residences. What was your reaction to that?
Well, look, I suppose that if you are a believer in getting rid of stamp duty, and I think there are reasons to reform it or abolish it altogether, and the government itself is
a horrible tax, Jonathan.
A lot of people on the left also think it's regressive because it also clogs up the market and so on. But if you believe it should be abolished, then the Conservatives were in power for 14 years. It is entirely reasonable to ask why didn't they do it, and if this is a silver bullet, then why hasn't anyone else triggered it in the last however many years? So that's the first thing to say.
Well, various governments have tampered with it and tinkered with it and raised and lowered thresholds.
Well, look, the government is talking about reforming property taxes anyway, because council tax, we can all agree, is the most regressive tax when you have...
Well, they're not going to reform it, they're going to jack them all up.
Well, I think it's reasonable that at the moment, I think the statistics are something like if you have... There are houses in Middlesbrough that pay less than mansions in Kensington. It's just completely crazy.
That pay more.
Yeah.
That pay more than
that pay more,
in
sorry.
Yeah.
And that's obviously crazy. That's unsustainable. So I think that the government is looking at sort of top-loading the most expensive properties, which I think most people...
They're not just doing that. They're hitting everyone, Jonathan. They're not just hitting the most expensive
That's what
properties.
they're talking about.
Yeah, well, they're talking about hitting everyone. They're using it as an extra way to get a tax from people. But I mean, I think that it's a great idea for young people because it will help young people get on the housing ladder. But she's not actually said who was going to be relieved of stamp duty, because it might just be...
No, they have clarified it's primary residences.
Yeah.
So if you're buying your first and only home, you will not pay stamp duty.
So age doesn't come into it?
No. But second homes will still be charged as now.
But what she's saying is that this is going to cost her, the Tories, £9 billion. And the questions were being asked, saying, where are you going to get it from? They're saying they're going to get it from the £47 billion they're going to save on the welfare bill. Now, we know what happens when you try and reform welfare bills. We saw it with Labour. Nothing happens. I don't know how they can whack off £47 billion
without
off a welfare bill.
Swinging austerity, which literally nobody wants, and reform, really interestingly, Farage is now moved from being a Thatcherite to being a...
But it's also interesting that Farage did touch on this.
Yeah, but there was a shocking statistic in her speech yesterday. I mean, I thought, did I mishear it? 5,000 people every day are signing on to various benefits. 5,000 a day.
Yes.
It's being abused.
Yes.
That's
it's
and
complete.
And that's where they're going to have to put a stop to it.
But we saw what happened with Labour when they tried to reform it. You know, you're going to have every person who's on benefit in this country.
That's because he had backbenchers who wouldn't let him do it. A weak Prime Minister.
But also you're going to have people in the country who are going to really resent it. You know, everyone who's on any kind of benefit is entirely convinced they deserve it.
Of course.
And of course, the amount of people who are on it now, I can't believe for a second they all deserve it.
And the Motability scheme they're going to reform. platform, which is being abused by so many people.
Completely. That means you get a free car if you've got some kind of allergy to something.
That's
It's ridiculous.
That's actually not true.
That is true.
It's not.
It is true.
It's not for something.
There was a
like
woman in the paper very recently.
There are a small number of people who are claiming
it is true.
It's a tiny minority.
But John, again, it's being abused.
Of course,
and
but
has
Andrew,
been abused for
as I've
years.
always said, there are always abuse in the system. Where I would disagree with you is that means that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And one thing I would just say
Well, you kind of do to reform a system. When you have a welfare bill that is going to be edging 100 billion quid, you have to do something. You have to be radical, because there can't be this many millions. I think it's 9 million people we currently have that are called economically inactive, who just won't work. They have to be made to work.
Problems. But one thing to say about stamp duty is that if you have, say, a house that's worth £350,000 and you're a first-time buyer, you're not paying stamp duty on the first 300, and you're paying 5% on the next 50,000. And as you know, one journalist was pointing out yesterday, there are very few young people who can't buy a 350k house because of £2,500.
But it's not just about the price; it's about the fact that it stops the market moving. Because actually, stamp duty is a much bigger barrier to people at the top of the housing market, which I know you don't feel sorry for people at the top of the housing market, but if they aren't willing to downsize or move, then people can't get onto it. So it's more about making sure they're properly in the pipeline than actually reducing the cost, I think.
And it's like we were saying before, it is just a speech. We don't know if she's going to do it. We don't know what conditions will be put on it.
We don't know if she will be Tory leader at the next election.
Because we know that half of the party members don't want her to lead them into the next election.
That might have changed after yesterday.
Well, yeah, but how long will that last? And we know we were talking about the polls before. There's been no polls yet to say whether she's shot up. I mean, what was her rating? It was minus something.
47, I think.
OK.
Not as low as the Prime Minister's.
No, but it's close. I mean, it's pretty close, which is shocking.
And Jenrick has certainly not abandoned his ambitions either.
He looked
very visible.
He looked very cross. Was he cross when she was making?
Well, Carol, Jonathan and Andrew, we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because we need to go to our 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you, 11:35. The top story this hour, Donald Trump says Israel and Hamas have agreed to phase 1 of his Gaza peace deal, a potential breakthrough that could see fighting halt within hours. The deal would see all Israeli hostages and some Palestinian prisoners released, humanitarian aid enter Gaza, and Israeli forces pull back to agreed lines. Donald Trump spoke to Fox News just hours after the deal was announced.
It's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's brought peace to the world, I'm telling you.
Well, Keir Starmer has hailed the agreement as a moment of profound relief. If approved by Israel's cabinet later today, a ceasefire could begin within hours. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer is in India meeting Prime Minister Modi on what's been called a historic trade mission. He's unveiling new business and film deals, saying the UK-India partnership could boost Britain's economy by nearly £5 billion a year. Millions of households in England are facing even higher water bills after 5 suppliers won their appeal to raise bills. The watchdog allowed an extra 3% rise on top of Ofwat's already approved 36% increase, though it rejected most of the firm's demands, calling them largely unjustified. Hate crimes across England and Wales have risen for the first time in 3 years, up 2% to now nearly 116,000. Race and religious hate crimes hit record highs, driven by a near 20% spike in anti-Muslim offences. And the Prime Minister is eyeing longer pub opening hours in a bid to revive Britain's struggling hospitality sector. He's launched a 4-week so-called Blitz consultation to cut red tape, making it easier for pubs to stay open later, play live music and serve food outside. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at midday.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain with Tom and Dawn. What are you doing, you guys?
Well, as it's going to be midday in the United Kingdom, as the early afternoon sets in, it's morning in America. America will be waking up to the digestion of this deal, this peace plan for the Middle East. I think we're going to learn a lot more about this. Did you hear Donald Trump on Fox News yesterday evening, where he seemed to suggest it wasn't just a plan for Gaza, but the entire Middle East. He seemed to hint that there was something to do with perhaps the wider Middle East. Could there be wider recognition for Israel? New Abraham Accords?
Yeah, and we're also talking about why the hell there are marches going on in this country still at the weekend.
Quite right. Very good conversation, because they should be stopped. Just don't need them.
Well,
not fair on the Jewish community, is it?
Certainly isn't, no.
That's coming up at midday, but up next we'll be debating whether Donald Trump deserves the Nobel Peace
I
Prize
so
for
hope he
his
gets
effort.
one, just to upset the Liberal left. They'll be so furious, wouldn't they? Fantastic.
Sure, that's a great reason.
Give
for
it
winning.
to him.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Very good.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. High pressure is now moving in from the west. That means it's going to be fine for many of us today, with some sunshine out there, although a lot of cloud at the same time, particularly towards the northwest of the country, where we're on the periphery of the high pressure, and a strong breeze will continue into the north and northwest of Scotland, along with thicker cloud and some patches of rain here and there, some spots of rain for Northern Ireland into northwest England as well. But away from those areas, actually it's dry, it's settled, and the best of the sunshine through the rest of the day will be across South Wales, southern England and parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland. Feeling pleasant where the sun shines, with temperatures above average for the time of year. Now, overnight, we keep the cloudy zones through central and northwestern parts of the country. Where we do get clear spells towards the far south, temperatures will fall away after dark, but in the northwest, a lot of cloud and still some drizzly rain for Northern Ireland, northwest England, western Scotland, especially for western hills of Scotland, but some decent cloud breaks there for eastern Scotland, northeast England, as well as the cloud breaks up over higher ground to the west. And as we go through the nights, some cloud will filter south, but southwest England likely to stay mostly clear, and it's here that temperatures will fall the furthest, with a few mist and fog patches forming by dawn, with light winds expected here as well, temperatures into the single figures. Eastern Scotland as well, some bright weather first thing, but a lot of cloud elsewhere across the country. Some light showers into the Midlands, northwest England, and that will stick around into the afternoon. But actually it progressively gets brighter in many places. Certainly a brighter day for the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. Wales, northern England and eastern Scotland. Temperatures reaching 18 or 19 Celsius.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
11:41, Britain's Newsroom with GB News with Andrew and Miriam. Back in the studio together. We haven't been in the studio for a couple of weeks, have we?
I know, you've been out, all these conferences, enjoying yourself.
Which thrilled everybody watching and listening, I know.
Absolutely. It was fun. Well, President Trump has helped Israel and Hamas to secure the first phase of the Gaza peace deal.
I think he's done more than help them. I think he told Netanyahu, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Absolutely, and he does now claim to have ended 6 wars, and he says it will be an insult to the United States if he doesn't receive a Nobel Peace Prize.
I love Trump. Don't you just love him? He's just so shameless. So we're asking, does he deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in the Middle East? To debate this, we're joined by Republican commentator Nora Lee Knotson and former Financial Times journalist Alan Friedman. Nora Lee, let's go to you first. What do you think? Should he get it? Because it seems like the ceasefire deal will be done today.
I think he's achieved what many said was impossible. He has made it possible. And for that, many people around the world believe undoubtedly he should achieve it, despite what the committee's rules are, by when you need to be nominated. I think it's incredible. And if you think Obama achieved it for his efforts to enhance diplomacy internationally, this isn't just about effort, it's about results. So I applaud Trump, and he will care. He will definitely care if he doesn't get it, but what's more important to him is that if he achieves peace, he stops the killing, stops the starvation, he will be forever remembered. He will be written in the history books, and he will change the dialogue going forward for hopefully peace in Ukraine and Russia.
Now, Alan Friedman, Trump would certainly be an unconventional choice for the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think it's too early to have this discussion with the peace deal hardly even signed?
Well, notwithstanding the effusive remarks of the other guest, I don't believe Donald Trump merits the Nobel Peace Prize, and I believe that his campaigning for it shamelessly is exactly the sort of thing that guarantees that he's not going to get it. I do believe that Trump needs credit, as you said before, for knocking heads together. He really told Netanyahu to get on with it, and that's true, and that deserves credit. Whether he's ended 6 wars, that's not quite clear. He claimed several times to have ended the war between India and Pakistan, but Prime Minister Modi of India said that's not true. We didn't need him. But I'm for peace. I'm for releasing the hostages. I'm for getting rid of Netanyahu, I think is also a problem, because I think we need a moderate government in Israel that won't create anti-Semitism, because I think Netanyahu has created, with his exaggerated response in Gaza, anti-Semitism, which is sad. But I think Trump doesn't deserve the Nobel Prize because he doesn't embody the values of the Nobel Peace Prize, which are morality, rule of law, respect for democracy and human rights.
But Obama got the Peace Prize, Alan. Obama got the Peace Prize, and what had he done? He hadn't solved any major conflict.
I agree with you on Obama. I agree that Obama should not have gotten it. I agree. But I also, be careful. You could end up with Tony Blair being imposed in the Middle East, which would be a disaster, folks.
Right.
Noralee Knotson, just very, very briefly, has Netanyahu caused anti-Semitism?
I think that's open to interpretation. I do believe how he has conducted this war has isolated Israel from the international community and made a lot of the Jewish community feel at risk in their own countries. And so a lot of people, of course, want to point the finger at Benjamin Netanyahu as the leader of Israel. So that is the reason why people blame him. And even a lot of Israelis want him gone. But I want to go back to the
I'm really sorry, Noralee. We don't have time, unfortunately. I'm so sorry we're reaching the end of the time. But Noralee Knotson and Alan Friedman, thank you so much for contributing today.
Too short. Now, still to come, the ceasefire in Gaza will come into effect this evening. After that peace deal, we'll bring you all the latest on that. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. exist?
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, Britain's most senior prosecutor has blamed Labour for the collapse of the China spies trial after the government repeatedly refused to describe Beijing as a national security threat. And, Andrew, I think this is an absolutely extraordinary story.
It is.
A Conservative MP at the time, or she's still an MP, Alicia Keane, one of her staffers accused of spying for China. She was briefed by the security services, told not to tell anybody. She had to sign the Official Secrets Act. And then the CPS began to build this case against this chap and another one, accusing them of spying for China. But the whole case has collapsed.
And it collapsed because we know that is not denied. Jonathan Power, who's the National Security Advisor, personally appointed by Keir Starmer, held a meeting and made it quite clear that the prosecution would not refer to China as an enemy or a threat. Therefore, they could not have been found guilty of spying. So that effectively collapsed the trial. Why? Why? Because, as Ian Duncan-Smith said, they're kowtowing to the horrible Chinese regime because they want to do a trade deal.
Well, it is extraordinary because all the CPS needed, and amazing that the Director of Public Prosecutions has actually come out publicly to say this, because, of course, normally he would completely stay out of politics.
And remember,
all they needed...
remember, Keir Starmer is a former Director of Public Prosecutions.
Yeah. They needed the government to provide a witness to make it either a statement in writing or in court to say that the Chinese were a national security threat. And it's very clear that they are. The previous government said that many times. Many ministers made that clear. So it's not clear why Labour was not willing to provide that assurance unless they fear a freezing over of relations with the Chinese, which could have trade impacts, could have economic impacts, which are real impacts, let's be clear.
And this will be a big issue when Parliament returns next week, not least because the former Cabinet Secretary, that's the most powerful civil servant in the land, Simon Case, he's intervened, so is a former head of MI6. They're all saying the government has questions to answer. Spying for China is dead serious.
And it does put all the other scandals in perspective. I know people aren't happy with some of the behaviour of cabinet ministers, but, you know, the one thing we do expect from our government is to act in the national interest.
Yeah, and the idea that a government may have junked... Now, Labour, of course, say no ministers were involved, but that's quite significant, that statement. Doesn't say no officials were involved.
Exactly. Well, two people who I'm sure will carry on with this debate, Tom and Dawn, they're coming up next at midday. That's it from Britain's Newsroom. We'll see you tomorrow.
That's right, it's morning in the streets of America and we're expecting more words from Donald Trump in the wake of this enormous Middle East peace deal. What does it mean for us?
Yeah, live breaking news from America and also live breaking news from the streets of London when there is another pro-Palestine march going on this weekend. We're asking, why? And we also, oh, by the way, we have spiders.
Spiders,
Killer spiders from hell invading your house soon.
Oh, goodness me, it's going to be a jam-packed show. Stay with us, all after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. High pressure is now moving in from the west. That means it's going to be fine for many of us today with some sunshine out there, although a lot of cloud at the same time, particularly towards the northwest of the country where we're on the periphery of the high pressure, and a strong breeze will continue into the north and northwest of Scotland, along with thicker cloud and some patches of rain here and there, some spots of rain for Northern Ireland into northwest England as well. But away from those areas, actually it's dry, it's settled, and the best of the sunshine through the rest of the day will be across South Wales, southern England and parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland. Feeling pleasant where the sun shines with temperatures above average for the time of year. Now, overnight, we keep the cloudy zones through central and northwestern parts of the country. Where we do get clear spells towards the far south, temperatures will fall away after dark, but in the northwest, a lot of cloud and still some drizzly rain for Northern Ireland, northwest England, western Scotland, especially for western hills of Scotland, but some decent cloud breaks there for eastern Scotland, northeast England, as well as the cloud breaks up over higher ground to the west. And as we go through the nights, some cloud will filter south, but southwest England likely to stay mostly clear, and it's here that temperatures will fall the furthest, with a few mist and fog patches forming by dawn, with light winds expected here as well, temperatures into the single figures. Eastern Scotland as well, some bright weather first thing, but a lot of cloud elsewhere across the country. Some light showers into the Midlands, northwest England, and that will stick around into the afternoon. But actually it progressively gets brighter in many places. Certainly a brighter day for the Midlands by the end of the afternoon. Wales, northern England and eastern Scotland. Temperatures reaching 18 or 19 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going.
A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first. GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience. Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from any